TV presents Gentle Giant with Pam Minnick and Katie Kaufman.
This week we're having a field day. We're in Huntsville, Texas, just north of Houston, where the Texas Draft Horse and Mule Association is putting on an educational event.
That's right, Pam. These owners are fine-tuning their skills with horse-drawn farm equipment. Stay with us. Gentle Giants will be back in just a moment.
Welcome back to Gentle Giants. We're grabbing the reins and taking you along as we learn how crops have been tended for centuries. Huntsville, Texas is located about 70 miles north of Houston. It was the home of Sam Houston, who served as President of the Republic of Texas, Governor of the state of Texas, and a U.S. Senator. General Houston led the Texas Army in the Battle of San Jacinto, a decisive victory of the Texas Revolution. It's also the headquarters of the Texas State Prison and gained international fame from its prison rodeos, which were held until 1986. Today, members of the Texas Draft Horse and Mule Association gathered at the farm of Alan Fry for friendship and to share information and educate one another on safe procedures of all aspects of hitching and using draft horses for farming. As we often see, there is a special camaraderie among owners of heavy horses, and today, after the horses were hitched, lunch was served and friendships rekindled. Debbie Halford is the secretary of the Texas Draft Horse and Mule Association.
The field day is just a chance for people to learn a little bit about the antique farm equipment, all the horse-drawn equipment. Some of the gentlemen in the association get together and bring their equipment so that everybody has a chance to try it with their animals and learn about it. We have some of our older members that, educate us, youngsters as they call us, and try to keep the art of driving alive. A lot of these guys, some of the founders of our association actually farmed as children with their parents, and so many of us, because we work full-time, we only get to do this as a hobby. So we try to get together every long weekend we can, or at least once a month with the association, and try to just play around and learn some of these old techniques that our ancestors used.
Alan Fry opened the gates of his farm for this gathering.
A lot of them come just to work their horses and enjoy it. A lot of them live in the city and they like to come out to the country. But they just learn more about the horses and how things were done a lot slower back, 100 years ago. I just enjoy working with them, working with the land and horses, the smell of the ground and all that kind of stuff, and just enjoy working the horses and watching them work, and they enjoy it too. Real sandy right here in Huntsville, and that helps. It's good to work up the disc and plows and stuff. They work it good and doesn't work the horses too hard. It's not like clay, and there's no rocks or no stumps in this soil right here. So it works out real well, and everybody likes it.
Bob Lewis of Hyco, Texas has been farming with draft horses for nearly 6 decades. He gladly offers wisdom and advice, but his primary message is safety.
Safety. Any kind of safety with a horse. It's just like your saddle horses or anything. You got to think of what might go wrong. Pay attention to what you're doing, and don't try to do more than your horses are broke to do, trained. And be aware of noises, or like you go to the fair, the elephants and camels. They're petrified of elephants and camels, so you kind of stay away from them until they learn. And little things like that. It's, it's real simple things, but you got to pay attention, be awake. Okay, these people all do this as a hobby, and some do it more seriously than others. And They just enjoy coming here and working their horses and learning. There's a lot of it is where people like me and a few others know more. We try to teach the new people so that they learn to do things safely.
A lot of safety with horses, especially with the bigger ones, because when you have big horses, you have big wrecks. So if you have something go wrong, you can get hurt a lot quicker than a smaller horse because they can tear up so much. And you just try to do things safe, and you try to preach safety. And a lot of it's from trial and error that you've done before or you've learned from other people. You just try to pass that on.
And he is now, he sat down so that he wouldn't lose his lines.
Never put your lines where you can't get to them. You can lay them down if the horses are broke pretty good, but always have them where you can just reach out and grab them. And when you back your horses up, make sure they're standing still and quiet before you go around front to work on the neck yoke, because if they decide to leave when you're doing the neck yoke, you're kind of helpless. They're going to go over the top of you. So you got to be real careful and have them lines where you can get at them. And then when you come back, you always hook the quiet horse up first. And then you go around and hook up the one that's a little more goofy, because that way he don't have to stand there so long before you get in the wagon or on the implement to drive. And it's just little things you got to think of. I've got 2 perch run draft horses, and then I've got 7 perch run mules. I raised the mules out of my perch run mares. And we don't need that many, but we have that many. The companionship, you know, we all got an interest in common, and the draft horses are a lot more docile and quiet, you know, and the people can get along with them without as much skill as you would like a cutting horse. And all that put together, the people just kind of gather up together. And then when you get to the 4, they're the same as the 1 and the team, because when you get the 2 up there, both of them got to screw up before you get in trouble. And with those, you got to have pretty well broke horses that listen to you. You don't do it with the lines. You got to talk to them, and they got to have a little bit of gas to keep everything tight. And if they got gas and they listen to you, you can have a lot of fun driving them. And they move right out, you know. But it doesn't take a whole lot of more skill to drive 3 as it does 2, and the same with the 4, as long as they're broke. You can't do it with ones that don't respond to you. G is to the right, Ha is to the left, and step-ups to go forward. And I don't think they understand the word, I think they understand the noise. You know, they pick up on a noise. And when you do it enough, like at the end of these rows, you pick it up and turn around, go down there and pick it up and turn around. After a few times, you get to the end of the row and they're waiting for you and they're starting to go the way you want to go. They pick up on that real fast, especially mules. And so I know they don't know English, but they know the noise.
Stay with us. We're going to sow some wild oats when Gentle Giants returns.
Welcome back to Gentle Giants. It's not necessary to have shiny harnesses or wagons here. This field day is about hard-working horses.
The seeder, it's an N-gate seeder and runs off a chain drive off the back wheel of the wagon. You need a guy up there filling it up, and then it just spreads the seed about 15, 20 foot wide and just keep going back and forth. She's in a 4-up team and she was on a double disc, and she was working it, and it takes at least 4 of them to work that because it cuts into that sand pretty good. So she was just working that ground up pretty good on that.
Eudora Franks grew up with draft horses in Ennis, Texas. influenced by her father, who is a vet, and her mother, who continues to drive teams and assist Dora.
Bob has been there. He helped train our first team of mares that we had. And the thing he told us, we could only afford to get them trained for 30 days. And Bob and his sons broke our mares out in the field, in plowing and in the field, just like you've seen today. And when he came and gave them back to us, we went and picked them up. He said, "You'll do just fine if you're smarter than they are." And that was his advice, and it's the truth. You have to be ahead of them. You have to be thinking ahead. And it's every time you drive, every time you hitch up, you have to be thinking about what your horses are going to do. You have to be aware of your surroundings, because it's not always what your team might do. It's what others are doing too that might influence your team. It's absolutely, I purely love it. It's a passion. I would rather do that and work my fingers to the bone doing that than any other thing that I could possibly do. It's just, I'll work and I'll run all day, and at the end of the day I'll have blisters on my feet and blisters on my hand, and I'd go do it the next day. It's just a pure love of doing it. I've driven 4 abreast several times in the past, and matter of fact, at our first oat harvest, Mom and Dad put on an oat harvest when I was, let's see, I think I was maybe a junior and senior. I was in high school anyway, and we put on a horse-drawn oat harvest on our farm, and Bob was there. And that was the first time somebody let me drive 4 abreast. I only had 2 horses and had never driven it. But some of the old timers that were in the Draft Horse Association at the beginning, Bob Lewis and Glenn Lawrence and Thomas Hicks and Dennis Purviance, I mean, there's a lot of fellas that were there, and I was always underneath their feet. Can I do it? Can I do it? Can I do it? And they stood right there and helped me and gave me the lines and told me what to look for and what to correct, and developed the timing and a watchful eye of what the horses are doing. When I'm driving the 4, I'm pretty particular. I want all my horses pulling even. That's why you'll see me with a whip. It's not because I'm going to whip anybody or anything like that, but I want evenness. And a horse that, when you're training, especially these 4, they've driven 4 quite a bit, but this one on my left, he's just a 2-year-old. This one here tries some things. He tries to bite the horse next to him. It's just those little things that the horses do. Well, I'm watching for that, and I'll adjust my lines, or I'll tap Mike and call his name and tell him to step up in there, because when the horses aren't pulling even, it makes it hard for the ones that are pulling and doing what, and they'll learn by keeping them up together that the load gets easier to pull if they stay together, and they'll learn to feel where that easy place is. So that's why when they're young and they're just starting out, I'll drive with a whip, because that lets me reach whoever I need to reach. If you slap the lines on a horse, that transfers to their bit in their mouth, and it's a message I don't want to send that to them. And all the people that have been in the Draft Horse Association all these years have just taught me those fine points of driving. There's just nothing like it. I mean, we've got saddle horses and we've got mules, and I like my mules and I like my horses, but I love being able to do with an animal what it's bred and raised to do, just with any breed. But the drafts, their willingness to work all day long, stay steady. These guys now, these 4, I can go get them in the pasture. I can not have worked them in 6 months, and I'm not going to have any major issues. You know, we'll have little things when they're fresh and stuff like that, but I know that I can go get them and we can go enjoy our day. We can use them in parades, town, weddings, everything, and they're just, they noticed everything that every other breed of horse noticed. They just get over it real quick. What I love about doing things like this is that everybody gets to use and work their horses at their level and what they're comfortable with. It's just nice to come to our events where everybody gets together and you learn things, and I think that's the same for everybody else here. You learn from each other, and everybody's willing to share what they know and share it with somebody else. It's just wonderful.
You know, all little girls love or are infatuated with and love horses. And so there's a few of us that have decided that this isn't a man's world, that we're going to learn how to do what our grandparents, our grandfathers did. So I think Dora grew up with her mom, you know, loving horses, and they got into drafts. And so she and I are one of the few females that drive, and we do the 4 abreast. I've driven her 4 horses on some farm equipment at our fields days. But I think the girls can do it. It's just a little manual labor that, you know.
More from the Draft Horse Field Day when Gentle Giants returns.
Welcome back to Gentle Giants. At this field day, we're seeing real horsepower on display. This is a labor of love for people with a connection to horses and the land.
Personally, I just love the sizing of them, just watching them work and just messing around with them. I think everybody else does about the same. I guess they just enjoy the different horses. A lot of them have had smaller horses at different times, and they've gravitated to the larger horses.
Mark Roller brought Emma and Hannah his American Brabants. These are the foundation of Belgians.
The Brabants are the old Belgians. That's what they, when you go to Belgium, this is what you see. Now, the Americans, they've bred them hitchier to where they're taller and all this. When you go to Belgium, this is what you see. We brought a lot of these. Some of these were brought in the 1980s, and that's kind of what these are from, that bloodline. There's a few been brought in, a few stallions between then and now. There's only about a dozen stallions in the United States that are 100%. I don't even think there's that many. They're really docile. That's one thing about these. Even young ones, it doesn't take long to break them. I had one that I had bought, a mare. She was 6, 7 years old, never been broke, never been worked. I put harness on her and started driving her. That's their temperament, most of them, and they wanna work. They're just so docile. Look at here. This is the way the babies are too. I've got yearlings at home that they just come and they walk around and follow you around. That's just the way most of them, 80% of them, that's the way they are. Just to get together. Yeah, we do that 4 or 5 times a year, different places, different things. We do it in the spring, about 4 different ones. Some of them, a couple of them are just trail ride things, and the rest of them are like this, where they plow and they work around. And it's a pretty good sized club, because I'm a member of the American Brabant Association, and we don't have as many members as we have here in the Texas Association. Texas has really come along pretty good, and I think it's just the members. They get to have these. The more of these things you have, the better it is, because gives the people a chance to get together and learn. There's things that I've learned just about hooking them and different things. So that's I guess the whole thing.
At 80+ years old, Johnny Amick of Mexia loves driving his gray Percheron mare Lucy and shares the special bond he's had with draft horses.
That's the main thing, having draft horses, so you can plow and till the fields and do your, after your planting, then you can do the cultivation, and with luck you can harvest something. It might be slower, but it's more gratification than just out there driving a tractor. When you're driving a team of horses, you're communicating with something, and you get in sync with them, and it's just a better thing. Start you a colt. Start out with giving the colt a name, so the colt knows you're talking to him for the rest of his life, or her, whichever it might be, and just work with them. And they'll turn out to be a great animal if you just take your time and let them almost break themselves. When I was a kid, I grew up with a team of black Percherons, and you lived with them. You got to know them. They knew you. If you was eating a potato that you'd plowed out of the field, they'd eat with you. And whatever, if you had an apple, they ate apples. And they'd follow you just like a dog would follow you. And I think things like that just stick with you the rest of your life. You become partners. And it don't happen overnight. It happens over a long period of time. Draft horses are just more gentle, more dependable, and you just learn to love them.
We'd like to thank all the folks here at the Texas Draft Horse and Mule Association for really showing us something about using heavy horse farm equipment.
That's right. We had a good time. You even got to drive a little bit.
That's right. Join us next time right here on Gentle Giants. Bye now.